Well, greetings. I was having trouble connecting. I was looking at my screen that I chose to use this time, which I've used, a number of times in a row now. And I never actually talked about what those numbers were down at the bottom there: 1859, 1872, 1909, 1921, 1989, and 2012. Which were times when there were solar events that melted wires, like the Carrington event was one of them. I forget which one was Carrington. I can't really actually read that right now. But I think it might have been 1872 maybe. So I know they were using telegraph wires for sending Morse code back and forth or whatever other ways they were wiring things to people. And those devices still worked even though the rubber melted off of them. That's from the sun. That's just from the sun. So that's one of the things that, the powers that be in control of this planet right now. I mean, not ultimately in control of it, because the next level is in control of it. But in terms of the human kingdom part of it, they've got a lot of control. And it's control that, anyway, they're building underground, which to them is a plus because they think they can escape, the solar wind, even though, maybe they're building, who knows, lead around there facilities, and I don't know what, to try to shield them from the sun's rays in case the sun keeps on getting hotter and hotter. Because they're not going to be able to stop any of that. So that's what that's why it doesn't matter who wins the election. They're going to still be proceeding with all that and also the way to try to control viruses, pestilence. They need to be able to do that too, and so that's why they've been putting so much money into it. And of course, they got a big boost by blowing out of proportion the COVID crisis. Not that people aren't dying, and even more are dying, but it's because they're not telling them that they could boost their immune system by fasting on the Transfiguration diet. I know they're not going to say that to anybody, but they could allow the naturopaths and the doctors like Mercola and to talk to the people about ways of using herbs and strong superfoods like cayenne pepper. And I don't hear him talking about cayenne pepper, but that's what Doe talked about. And so that's the number one supplement that I think everybody would have an advantage to using to help clean themselves out of the way that mucus forms around the foods that are void of enzymes. All the dead food is void of enzymes. So the body's got to generate the energy for. That's why sometimes we can feel so crappy by a large meal and we go to sleep because the body's shutting down. It's like you need to work on digesting this now with this energy. You got to develop. You got to go to the pancreas and get it to release different enzymes, and the gallbladder, and for the digest the fats, and and then use hydrochloric acid to digest the meats, and then use that to kind of bring back the stomach into a different acidity, kind of a neutral acidity. I don't know if the stomach is naturally alkalinic in its pH, but anyway, so they could be teaching that because this is science I'm talking about. and food combining. They could be teaching that as a way to have an immune system that can actually fight off the pestilences instead of being so clogged up that the body doesn't stand a chance. When the virus stimulates the body to heat up with a fever, what it's doing is it's literally melting the mucus out of the body. And so that's why it comes out as a runny nose and through coughs, because that mucus goes into the lungs and creates pneumonia and bronchitis. And so, that's why most colds go through a pattern of starting with a sore throat and then a runny nose and fever. That can all happen very quickly all together. And aches and pains and lethargy and foggy-headed thinking, because it's like we got fluids everywhere throughout our body being excreted by the cells as the immune system's trying to devour the toxins. And so the toxins are all the things that are in the food that the body has to work harder to get rid of. Now, I'm not saying that, that's all the pesticides are in that category necessarily. The body's equipped to deal with a lot of it. And the body even adjusts to dealing with things so that it's not so sensitive. I learned that when we were fasting, after we had done the apple juice fast for 3 days, and then we were on the transfiguration diet or conversion to it, something that still had some flesh foods in them or whatever. I don't. Maybe had some rice and beans was a staple then. Which the transition to that diet is also in the Transfiguration Diet book. All right, so oh, hello, Welsh Dragon. And Booser says, I'm probably going to turn into a pumpkin listening to this. No offense. No, I don't take an offense at all. If I put you to sleep, that's great. I think, if it's that relaxing, fine, You got your hours. Who knows where I am on that spectrum, right? And what you've been through. So certainly no offense taken. Jeff says, greetings. Hello, Jeff. How are you? Welsh Dragon, I know how you are already. I'm being silly because I communicate with you all through Facebook sometimes too. And and Kathy Southwestern, hey, how you doing? And wow, what a ride. If you're staying in tune with what's going on, right? It's still a ride. I mean, it's like, this is phase 2, right? Of the stress and the trying to figure out what's true and what's not. What's I'm going to throw out my take, which I do on my other Facebook page all the time. I post like 3 or 4 different articles there. But I'll give you all the bottom lines of the way I'm thinking about things for whatever it's worth. And which I said this in the previous ones as well, that I felt like something was fishy right away when it was stopped, when the counting was stopped. And so then observers were brought. Well, anyway, I don't go through all the details of that because you probably know about them as well as I do. But talked about this before, and I don't really want to go over the same kind of opinions right now, but so that's why I'm hemming and hawing about this a little bit. But this is a coup d'etat. It's the world. One world government is what we're experiencing. And Trump is in the way of that. Like being a part of the Paris Accord is part of that. Because it's putting money into all the programs that they can put into motion to try to help them build their underground facilities. It comes down to that kind of nuts and bolts, and also to have their space program so that they can contribute to fighting against ways of trying to deflect asteroids and trying to deflect the sun's sunlight so that the sun doesn't melt all our wiring systems. Even though those wiring systems might still work, right? Like the Carrington event showed. But, to survive what the sun is doing on the planet, because they know that it's heating up the magma underneath the planet. The scientists know that. And all different kinds of magma. There's iron magma, and there's other kinds of minerals that are magma. And they know about the increase for a while. I don't know if they're still happening. They seem to take a pause. Or maybe I just haven't been going to that website that follows all the earthquakes and all the, I do try to read his headlines. So maybe there are some volcanoes going off. But they seem to happen in shifts. Like Doe said that perhaps the return would be marked by thousands of spacecrafts coming in shifts. Now, what do you mean by that, shifts? And was he talking about spacecrafts from the lower forces, the space aliens, the souls that have hybridized vehicles, human vehicles on board that are, that are being controlled by the souls that can be outside the vehicles as well, and they can actually influence people by standing right next to them and giving them ideas. Literally, not like they say in the movies or the don't you do, you sell your soul to me. In a sense, that's the battle that goes on with each person. But they get accustomed to it, and they get to the place to where, I've gone this course now, and I've got to play it out because there's no going back. And they end up becoming actually Luciferian believers. And they actually end up worshiping Lucifer and Satan, literally, in their different rituals that they have. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying who's doing what. And that's a way that they have, even in their minds, that they're mocking the people that believe in the kingdom of God, in the Judeo-Christian heritage and the Islamic heritage. Judeo-Christian and Islamic heritage. So that's a good thing about the Biden thing. If they're relaxing some of the blockages that have been put on travel to and from other nations, I'm in favor of Biden for that reason. And I'm also in favor of Biden for legalizing marijuana. He should also pay restitution and let everybody out of prison that had any crime associated with marijuana. Because it is an herb. Now, I don't know if the next level was behind that as well, because they might not have wanted people to have access to it before now, because the next level does show signs of regulating those kind of things. Well, I know that T and Do know that, teach that, talk about that. Although I can't remember actually exact words about that, but they said that they designed it all. So, and I know I got lots of concrete examples of how they regulate the negative forces of the planet upon us. So they keep, like Do said, T and Do said that we called them boogers, that the lower forces were assigned to all the students. And so that can be all of you too, because you're as much of a student as I am at this point. We're all equal in that regard. Actually, I might be behind you all. I just might know how to talk about it pretty well. So there's no judgment on anybody or myself in this regard. But because, we are in different places ahead or behind one another. And so in that way, we can all help each other, by recognizing that one isn't worse than the other in whatever we're attached to in the human kingdom. Rightfully attached to, and, because we have responsibilities to children and other people in our lives that we've committed to. And, all those things provide us with lessons. But the task for the student is required that we actually work for the next level. And helping people see their information is standing for T and Do by everything they taught. We got a lot of examples of things. Wow, we could, there could be a video made on every audio tape. Gosh, I hadn't even thought about that before, but I can hear the lower forces like saying, well, because I was thinking when I said that I could do a video where I'm commenting on an audio tape, okay? Either after it's played or in between, whatever I want to do. And I can hear the lower forces saying, and some specific individuals even, saying, oh, we don't need your commentary, Sawyer. And I'm not saying that, in response to that, no, you don't need my commentary. But can it be a positive? Yes, I think it can. Because all things can be used as a positive. Even if I was getting off on it as an ego that was thinking, I'm this great teacher and I'm, showing people how to think about T and Do, and whoop-de-doo. Even if that was the case, which it's not, fortunately, if it's a positive, it's a positive for the person. As long as I'm not telling them something that is against what they can find in the audio tapes and in the, find it in ways of thinking that they can end up connecting to things that might be talked about in the audio tapes. Like when T and Do in the audio tapes talked about boxes, boxes. And they were saying that the human kingdom was had a root system that was invisible to the humans, and but it's just as real as a plant root system. And that one of the examples they gave of it was they brought up the example of when they were walking in the mall somewhere, and they turned around to look, and they saw somebody that was looking over towards them. They didn't say it that way exactly, but they recognized that walking in front of them was, and that was from the other side of the mall, was what a lot of males would refer to as a attractive female. Now, of course, attraction could be anything, but so that doesn't, I'm not describing anybody even in society that's considered attractive right now, because they have, or no, I know the exact example was that they were walking behind a man, a male man, because man actually refers to Homo sapien in the Bible, in most of the Bible, in some of the Bible, not everything. And they saw the person walking in front of them turn their head to look backwards. I know I've told this story before. And so they looked where the direction that person was looking, and they saw a female on the other side of the mall from where they were walking. And the thought they had was, look at that. That's that connection, the mind connection. Well, they said the thoughts were real. So if that female is out there looking for a male, then she's putting out those thoughts. And those thoughts can be immediate. She's sending out that radar, if you want to look at it that way, transmission of radar. And the male who's got the radar looking for the same thing, even if they're not consciously looking for it, they're just attracted to females, which a lot of males are, and or even the same sex is the same thing. It's not any different. This is just the example they gave was the male and female, and then they pick up on that transmission. And they can even know where the direction was, They can just start looking around, But anyway, so I want to get back to where the regulation of that negativity or that root system, it's not necessarily negativity. It's only negativity when it's dragging you into behavior that you want to conquer. Then it becomes negativity, but it's not negativity for the people that don't want to conquer it. It's just part of the way the mammalian kingdom works. There's no moral judgment on it. You're not right or wrong by being sexual. You're just not growing towards next level membership as fast as you could be. By getting rid of it. And if you are in the process of trying to get rid of it, and you have a nocturnal emission, that's considered energy off the top, as long as you didn't stimulate it. But I mean, even if you stimulate it, that's not a reason to not continue to work on it. You just know what the goal is. And so all the thoughts that might come to you and say, well, I can't conquer this, so I might as well not try. That's Luciferian thinking. That's space aliens, who don't want you to believe in the next level. That they exist and that they are better than them. Because they've given into not having any recognition anymore that the next level is real and that they're in control of everything. Like I said in the beginning of this, that the misinformation is is controlling people, right? And even that has to do with thinking that the purpose of humans is to propagate. It is one purpose for humans to have, but it's not the purpose for humans. It became the purpose for humans because when Adam didn't succeed in fighting off his demons, in whatever shape that took, as simple as it could be, or as complicated as it can be, over what period of time, who knows, but probably very quickly. Like Doe said, that didn't take very long for Adam's vehicle to go through a reverse metamorphosis to where it was reproducing with Eve. And Eve as well went through a reverse. And he didn't talk about it, Eve, at that time. In the Black Hawk tapes is where you can hear it. And those tapes are available on this channel. Just search for Black Hawk through my videos. That was some of the first ones that I made. Which is just, I just put words on the screen. I don't talk about it. Let me go back to the chat room. Now the regulation, though, of the, like when they said that they didn't want to move to Utah because they didn't feel like they wanted us, the next level wanted us to be subject to the influences in the Utah, in that area of Salt Lake City area, as we were before on several occasions for short periods of time. We never actually had a house in that area, but we lived outdoors in the forest and the BLM land and the natural forest. The national forest and the BLM land and the and actually in campgrounds like up just south of Provo, Utah, and then also just southwest of Salt Lake City. Anyway, and also north of Salt Lake City, east of Salt Lake City. But what they said is that they didn't say any more about it. But isn't it interesting that not too long ago, I mean actually months ago, there was that earthquake that happened, and the horn was knocked off of what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name now. The individual that's considered to be a space alien by the high Mormons. Oh, what's his name? And he's holding a horn sitting on the top of the Temple Mount. They said that the temple had to be rebuilt again. I think it was. It was rebuilt in Salt Lake City. Even though it was also built, a number of temples were built again. But the temple, what that really meant, that was the lower translation of it. Because what Jesus was saying about rebuilding the temple, he was talking about the temple being the location geographically and the mind of the people that were going to be prepared to receive the older member's mind when they brought it to that geographical area in the United States. So the lower translation, the facsimile of that, maybe that's the best way of saying it, that the Luciferians generated was, I hadn't realized that before. I mean, I'm not saying that's absolutely true. I almost had the name again, and I lost it, and I had it again almost within seconds there. I lost it again. It's trying to come back in, it's like, it's like I got a seek and search going on in this computer, and I've lost a bunch of cells. So the memories start to decline. When you don't use it, you lose it. It seems like that's happening faster now. Well, I don't know. It is what it is, What are you going to do if you lose your mind? I don't want to. If I lose my mind, I certainly don't want to be in this vehicle anymore. Unless I'm of some use still to somebody in terms of tea and dough. Which, so talking about, I was going to go back to the chat room, but I wanted to finish that thought, and I keep on not getting to the exact spot I feel like I can get to with the way that, well, I talked about the regulation of the mind, but also, I know what it was, that they said that we were assigned those individuals that were, the associates with the one that was called Lucy. Not Lucy, because Doe didn't feel like that was proper to use that word, because somebody might feel offended that has that name. It's a beautiful name. So he used the word Lucifer each time, even though that too, somebody shouldn't feel offended if they have that name, I think. But he didn't go into saying that, so maybe I'm wrong about saying that. But, because they can always change their name. They don't have to stick to it. Just had that thought. And if it is a big problem, well, then they use that against believing in Doe, then that's their choice. The next level gives us all kinds of reasons to not believe in them. They make it easy, actually, because the Luciferians give us those thoughts. And so then we build our minds by blocking them out. So we brainwash ourselves. We don't get brainwashed. We don't get brainwashed by anything, because if we don't do the work, we don't keep those demons out. If we don't tell that thought to get it the hell out of here, every time it happens, then it doesn't go away. Doe doesn't do it for us. Even in the classroom, they didn't do it for us. They would remind us sometimes that they didn't feel like we were doing it enough. I mean, the way they would say that would be, instead of watching TV tonight, why don't you listen to one of the last meeting tapes again? They did that a few times. A number of times. Not a lot. Probably on one hand through 19 years. I mean, but if they were really trying to brainwash us, why wouldn't they? I mean, we had the option to listen to the tapes anytime we wanted to. And some people took that option more than others. But not a lot took that option more than others that I saw. But people might have went into the rest chambers to listen to tapes. I think I walked in on Jan Odie when she was listening to a tape in a rest chamber. Or maybe she came in to do that. Yeah, she came in to do that in the rest chamber. And I was in that rest chamber resting because I had a legitimate reason for taking a nap. I don't know if I was feeling under the weather, because sometimes they didn't want us to give in to our vehicles, so that didn't usually happen. But I might have been on a weird schedule because of my out-of-craft task, my job in the world. And so I was given the opportunity to have a nap, or sometimes they scheduled naps. Early on, in the first 3 years, we had naps all the time. Every day we had a nap, in addition to being required to sleep or stay down in our bunks for 8 hours. Sometimes, occasionally 9, but usually then there was an option to get up after 8. And then we had times where we had we were experimenting with sleep, and so we had 6 hours up and 6 hours down. And then Frank said that we had a time when we did 2 hours up and 2 hours down. And I didn't remember it at the time, but now that I think about it, we did do that. But I think we only did that for like days. And the 6 hours up and down was only at the most probably a week. And the way I remember it. And I could be wrong. It might not be that much. I mean, might be much more than that. But and then when we went on sleep patterns of 8 hours, but a 7-hour minimum, so you could get up after 7 hours. And then there was another sleep pattern where we had that you could go to bed early, which all those sleep patterns before that didn't have a different downtime. So some people would stay up an hour later than others. And then some people would and then we had a thing where you needed a minimum of 7 hours total rest. So if you went down early, you wouldn't get up early, because we did have a 6-hour rest downtime pattern as a minimum. I mean, added to the pattern as a maximum of 8 hours, a minimum of 6 hours. And so these instructions were like changing all the time. And then we had shifts. During the time that we were doing the 6 hours on and 6 hours off, we were doing all the same behaviors, in terms of having breakfast for the people that were waking up, and then lunch for the people that were waking up, and then dinner for the people that were waking up, and snack and TV viewing or whatever they had, we didn't really have any TV viewing, but we played a lot of games like Battleship and Stratego and Pac-Man and checkers, and no chess. We had a little bit of chess, but then they discontinued it, I think. Because people were doing it too much, I think. Because they didn't put a regulation on it. They actually had a requirement of playing a certain amount of games every day for a while. And then it became optional. Because they said we needed to work our minds. At that time, when we were working our minds the most in the beginning, there was when, in the beginning in those years when we were living outdoors, was when they also told us that we needed to eat like 16 pieces of candy every day. Well, maybe that was a couple days worth. I think it was even as much as 23 pieces. You know, what they were the hard candies. So like the jawbreakers. And we weren't supposed to chew them. Because chewing them would force them into our teeth more. Right? I mean, where they could stay easier if we don't brush that well. You know, we were brushing twice a day, I think, during that time. All right, so did I get to that point on the assign the boogers? Oh, no, I didn't get to it yet. So the point was that you could ask the next level to reduce the bombardment from what they called boogers, those people that were assigned. So, I mean, there were discarnates and there were boogers. Maybe the boogers are more the ones that want us to doubt T&O's reality. Not that that's not a healthy thing to do when you're trying to work it out. But at some point, if you continue as a student of T&O, then you're going to see that coming around. You're going to say, take a hike. I've really been there. But I've examined it enough times. Maybe I don't know. I don't agree, necessarily feel like I understand everything that they were teaching, but I do believe that everything they were teaching has an understanding to it that I will come to understand. If you want to give that booger that argument, and then after a while you'll be tired of giving that argument, and you'll just say, you'll block it out, and you'll see it coming even before it even forms in your head. Even before the words actually complete the sentence, you'll see where the sentence was going, and then you'll get to the point to where you don't even need to start the sentence, and it'll be blocked out, and you'll hold your mind, your eye on that like a force, keeping that thought out. But then you can't just give. You should do that quickly and then put your mind on something else. And then if you feel the pull of going back to it to see if it's gone, don't go back. Because that will happen to many people too. And see, that's how we wash our brains of our humanness. And the determination of what to wash our brains from is in the major offense list, the lesser offense list, and the 17 steps, and all the other information in the Heaven's Gate book. That's where, and everything T&O said and taught in the audio tapes and videotapes, all their words. That becomes our Bible. That's equivalent to the words of Jesus in the four Gospels. Well, not equivalent, really, but I mean, it's from the same kingdom at that stage of growth. Which there may be many souls here now that had a significant relationship with Jesus and or Moses, Jehovah, and or before that are in the place in their growth to where they're just going, they are separating from the world in their own way. So they never even hear about Tiendo. And they will also be saved by the next level. But the next level is the determination of all of this, where we go, what happens to our souls or spirits. Whether they want a certain amount of spirits to be sorted, which I think was the impression I got from Do, that also takes place. And it talks about that in Revelation 19, that upon his return he does the sorting. I mean, some of that sorting is happening as we speak. Like Doe said in the USA Today information advertisement. It's titled UFO Cult Services with Final Warning. I think, is that what it was? Or I'm misremembering the last part of it. I kind of wonder if that part of Scripture that talks about, let me get to it, because I haven't gone through this part of Scripture in a long time. Okay. Oh no, I got to go back to the chat room before I do that. So let me put it up here, and I'll go to the chat room. There it is. And there it is. I might as well go through this little thing about Genesis at some point too, but no, let me find the spot actually before I go to the chat room. Okay, Revelation 6. Revelation 6, so which one, let's see, go down and down to 6:12 starts it. I'll just leave that up for now. A lot of stuff in here that looks like it's going to happen. And Tiendo did say that all the events depicted in the book of Revelations would come to pass. They said that in the UFO Missionary Extraordinary interview or the statement from Tiendo. No, the statement from the two, I think it was called, right? But the part I was going to get to is when they see his face. From the wrath of the Lamb. Let's see. There it is in Revelation 6:16. And said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. The face of him that sitteth on the throne. Well, who's on the throne? Well, Revelation 12 says that it's the moon. It says it's the man-child of older member. It's dough. That's the face. So I wonder how many people saw that USA Today ad in the international and the national edition on May 27th, 1993, that are going to have the thought when they see some kind of a spacecraft in the sky, or a whole bunch of them, and they have the thought, Heaven's Gate or Applewhite or something like that. The literal recognizing that it's him, because he's projecting that thought. Automatically, because his mind is very powerful, and so that thought is going out from him. All his thoughts are going out to people because he cares about what's going on. And he's issuing judgment on the people that have gone against him and have led others to go against him. And so they're feeling that fear. That's what it's talking about here. Saying, fall on us. This fear is so great, we want to die. And hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. They're saying that to the mountains and the rocks. In other words, they want to die. I understand that. Now, it's not that he wants them to experience that, like the way they make it sound like, oh, now they're in heaven eternally, right? Well, not necessarily. They're not necessarily even dying. It says, fall on us and hide us, right? They're saying that, but it doesn't mean they're killing themselves. Because what does say is that that's going to be the new crop of Luciferians. And the old ones are going to be dissolved, I believe is what was indicated to happen in the book of Revelation. And I don't remember if Tina actually said that. That was an accurate part or not. But they might have, though. And who was he talking to at that time? In Revelation 6:15, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and that word men, here we are. Let me go to that and see what MENI from Isaiah 65:11, that number is talking about. The destiny. A symbol of destiny. Probably an idol which the captive Israelites worshipped after the example of the Babylonians. Well, they are all idol worshipping when they're worshipping the human kingdom. And one another even. Like, looking on the scientists or as gods. That if they get on the TV and they talk, we trust them. That's what makes them into that God position. Trust them with our lives on the vaccines and all. Not that sometimes we don't need to have trust in people. Sure, if we're sick and we get, and or we have an operation we need, yeah, you got to trust them then. But you're really not necessarily trusting them. Whenever I'm in a situation to where I'm scared medically, like usually from some minor operations in context of everybody, a lot of people, but tooth extractions that weren't going well. They weren't getting it out. And so it was a trauma every time the clamp fell off of my teeth. my tooth that was broken off, you know. It would snap, like, and my whole body would shake like a, you know, or when they hit a nerve and you go through the roof, you know. If that continued for a long time, I never actually experienced that, except for in a minor way, you know, by that pain that gave you a headache, you know, and basically depleted you. So I have experienced some pain in my life, but I know not compared to some people. But why did I start talking about that? I was trying to describe this. So let me go to the lexicon here, because the word for men is dunatos. Do not us. Do not us? Do not us. From 1410, which I don't have available right now, because my little software doesn't work anymore. I don't want to take a half hour loading it from the internet, even though, well, I got to get a Strong's Concordance so I can just look it up there. Possible, able, mighty, strong. See, this is the word that's used from man. Wait a minute, something's not right about this. Strong in Christian virtue. To be able to, well, they're talking about a man because, okay, I'm going to see if Donatas is the same one for every use of man. No, one is eleutherus. It's talking about free or a free woman, at liberty, a free man. Okay, it's used in all those ways. Eleutheros, freeborn, in a civil sense, one who is not a slave, of one who ceases to be a slave. Now, in some ways, we're all enslaved if we've got to pay taxes to that degree that we're not getting any value from. We're getting whatever the slave owner, you know, is determining we can get. And if we say the wrong things in the wrong place, they can punish us. If we use the wrong herbs, they can punish us and give us fines. If we go the wrong speed limit at the wrong time, we're working for them so that they can continue to enslave us. It sounds pretty dismal, doesn't it? But of course we get used to it, and we know it's not a big deal because it's not that much of our time a lot of times, but it can be a headache sometimes, right, to deal with the courts and all that. And fortunately we deal with it as little as possible, but it's the norm for us, right? So we don't really think of ourselves as slaves, but we are, especially when we go to a job that we don't like anymore, right? We're doing it so that we can eat and sleep, and that's fine, because that's when we need to earn sticks. Even now. Great men was the word mene, majestes, means the grand. Each of these words is different. Holy smokes. The grandees, magnates, nobles, chief men. Oh, I see. Okay, some of these terms are mighty men is like, you know, great men, and every bondman is another word, another expression. Talking about a slave, a bondman, a man of servitude, servile condition, a slave, one who gives himself up to another's will, those whose service is used by Christ in extending and advancing his cause among men. doulas. It's a doula. Now we know that word is used for somebody that takes care of somebody else's children and sometimes their financial affairs and things. Devoted to another to the disregard of one's own interests. Servant, attendant. This is pretty much everybody. They're hiding themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Potentially everybody. But only the ones that know where to go. Right? And the rest of us are, because I'm not going to know where, I wouldn't want to be with them. Not for all the money in China or all the whatever I could get from being there. I'd much rather go to the grave than to be with them. Locked up underground or in the mountains. With people that don't know that the next level exists. And that you know whether, wow, that would be torture. I'd probably do a lot of arguing and they'd probably just give me drugs or something or snuff me out quietly. So they don't appear to be evil. Like Biden said, he was going to make sure that everybody was treated humanely by the contact tracers, the army that he's starting up. It's going to be a new, it's like the brown shirts in a sense, right? If they see something wrong, they're going to have the authority to probably inoculate you right on the spot. If you don't have your records up to date and you want to continue to work for people and you don't follow the quarantine protocols and the mask requirements, you're going to be a dissident. So I think taking the advice of like Jesus gave us, as agree with your adversary when you're in the way with them, means not wanting to stand out as being against that. Not that there can't be some value to that, okay? And maybe some of the value to it is that the people will be acting so weird, so angry, more and more that we don't want to be in the public. And we don't want to be identified in the public as being a certain way. I feel like somebody was judging me the other day when I went to the dump because somebody else that I actually knew, but for some reason I didn't try to talk to her, even though I wasn't wearing a mask. Because when I got there, the guy that was managing the dump wasn't wearing a mask, and so I wasn't going to wear it there. I don't wear it when there's other people that aren't wearing it. I only wear it when there's people that are wearing it and would feel threatened by me. And some people do feel like they're threatened by somebody not wearing a mask. Which, if they're that threatened by somebody like that, that's not showing any symptoms, or even if they are showing some symptoms, then maybe they shouldn't be out in public. Because they're the exception. Most of the people walking around aren't sniffling and sneezing, and or not even showing any signs of any fluids coming out of us that could travel for any distance. Well, I mean, I don't know. The particles can travel, I guess. I mean, if you can walk in the grocery store and you can feel the cool air through your mask, like let's say if you came in from the summer, like I was able to feel, then you know that that cool air is coming from the air conditioning system, right? It's circulating all around the whole place. And so that means that it's coming into you, your air's coming in and air's going out, because unless you got a pressured fitting that's really glued to the face really strongly, the air is trying to get out through the path of least resistance. So it becomes whether the filter that's on there, if you got one of those that has a reverse filter, or if you don't have one that's got a reverse filter, then it's only potentially filtering in what comes in and not filtering out what's coming in. It's not filtering out what's going out. So nobody's being protected by us through those bandana masks. Nobody's being protected from anything in those. Well, 47% protection of what's coming in of certain size particles, of even that could have flu virus on them. That's what the science said, I believe, that last time I studied it. And but 97% if you have a mask that filters out that size particle, which very few masks are available for that, and who knows what they cost. But I don't think N95 might be in that category. But even the N95s don't filter out what's going out, even though they might filter out 97% of the particles that might have virus on them going in. And you got to wear a nose clip, and it's got to be, it should, come up tight around your neck too. If we're trying to keep every particle out, of course, the amount of particles you keep out, I know is a value, because it takes a lot of particles to stimulate symptoms. But that's the value of having your immune system working really well. Then you don't have to be so worried about it, whether you're going to be letting in the amount of particles that could stimulate. And if you get to a place to where you get a sore throat, then go and do a hot water salt gargle as soon as you can. Hot water as hot as you can stand. You don't want to burn yourself, your throat, whatever. But and that gets rid of a lot of sore throats. But whether it gets rid of it or not might depend upon how well your immune system is fighting off those viral particles. Because this virus is around us potentially all the time. Whether coming out of people or whatever, and coming out of animals. Maybe in the raw meat that we eat or handle. I don't know if it can get into us that way. Or I don't know what happens when we, smell certain fumes from our bodies or from, vehicles, what we get. I guess the viruses are probably killed by those fumes, right? These kind of viruses are pretty weak, actually. They're killed by stomach acid and even by heat, I think, hot water. That's the value to washing your hands, right? Which I've been doing that, for years and years and years, of course. I wash my hands. And then when I'm in public, I don't touch my hands to my face. Maybe I do more than I think I do. Like I noticed I just touched my nose just now. Why did I need to do that? It didn't even itch me. All right. So before that happens in the kings of the earth and the great men that go and hide, you know, I wouldn't doubt at all whether they had, some people had a drill, and that even shutting down air flights was good, because then people would know, and staying home was good because then people would know certain people were traveling certain places, you know. Certain people were traveling outside the cities, which was happening anyway because people didn't want to be locked down. But I imagine that they take advantage of every crisis, right? And they plan this ahead of time, you know, with Agenda 201, right? So why wouldn't they use that happening as to see if their systems were working well for communication, you know, to tell people where to go? Because there may be some people that they're not authorized to know where to go because they want to keep it such a secret that they give them a place to go first, you know, to where they can be checked out, and then they can be told to go to some underground city that might look like a building to us, you know, downtown somewhere, but it's really an entrance to a subway system that can take you to a different state even very quickly on high-speed rails. That's what the Boring Company's doing, right? They're building underground tunnels. A lot of money for all that work, maintaining that machinery and keeping it running and keeping a staff running with it. Maybe they have to work in hazmat suits. Maybe some of them get sick from it, but are willing to sacrifice their lives for the good of saving the world, saving these people that they believe in. The next level may judge them differently. The same as with people that die from diseases. And they come to wake up because of that disease. So a positive can be had from everything. Not that we want to stimulate that for anybody to experience. We should never want to do that. We don't have that overview of that being a right step for that person in that body. And that's why collateral damage is such a negative thing. It doesn't mean that we don't do things all the time that stimulate people to die. Car accidents. We drive cars all the time when we know that people can die from that. So whether it happens to us or, you know, as the cause of it, or it happens to us because of somebody else, does that mean we should outlaw cars? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, T&O didn't say anything about that, and I imagine that they would have if that was something important to say. But how could they say that and then have us driving cars, right? No, they said all opportunities, and see, vehicles isn't the end result. That's why the next level designs vehicles to have an end. But they can design vehicles that don't have an end also. Like Doe said, they design vehicles that are perishable and imperishable. But I don't think there's an imperishable human vehicle. I would doubt that highly. Because it wouldn't be, it's by its very nature, it's perishable, I think. But I don't know, then maybe there's some kind of environment that you could put them in, like freezing, at some deep temperature, but does it preserve the mind? Or does it freeze out the mind so that that person starts with no mind, no memories? I don't know. I know they've been experimenting with that. I don't know, how far they've gone with cryogenics, right? But anyway, it certainly is a preservative. I know that because they're storing the viruses that are being made now. They store them in. There's only not that many facilities that store these because they have to be way below zero. I mean, I think it's even double digits below zero, maybe even triple digits below zero. I wonder how far you can go with that and what happens. Does the air end up freezing? Well, I guess that happens. Yeah, sure, the air freezes. Well, I don't know, actually. And said to the mountains and rocks, I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it just looks like an ice cube, right? The air around the ice cube. All right, I went through that Revelations there, I think enough to make that point of the face sitting on the throne, that they... I don't think there would be a literal face in the sky or on the TVs or anything, because that can all be done by trickery. I don't think the next level would want to do things that humans can do. But humans can transmit thoughts, right? And so can the space aliens, right? But maybe not. I don't know. There's well, it doesn't make any difference because the person's going to be is going to have the same behavior regardless of what degree in which the Luciferians can duplicate, projecting their minds into trying to change the projection of what the next level puts out. The next level's got more power, so their minds comes through and basically just wipes out the Luciferian mind that's trying to program me not to see the face of dough, for instance, if that was something that they would do. It's just the way I'm thinking about it now. I could be off about that, but all right, chat room. Jeff says we need to mine asteroids. Yes, I agree. They want to mine them, right? I think they want to mine them, and then if they can, deflect them as well. Because like Bush said, he said maybe by setting up... Bush said this in one of the last State of the Union addresses that he gave, G.W. Bush. He said, talked about that he was starting a project of having colonies on the moon and Mars. A long time ago, right? And this was like days or weeks after China announced that they were going to the moon and Mars again. And so they announced it, and he said that and in the process, perhaps we will find an energy source, an energy resource that will boggle the mind. I remember those words. That will boggle the mind. We also played boggle in the classroom, by the way. Boggle. And also Rubik's Cube and Simon. Anyway, they'll boggle the mind. And so when I heard that, I was already aware of how Bob Lazar had documented element 106, was it, or 107 or something like that, that had the atomic weight of that number, approximately. But it was off the charts from whatever they had at that time. So it was heavier than anything they had. Supposedly it killed the previous person that tried to backwards engineer the engine that they were trying to, the engine they got from one of the down spacecrafts that the Luciferians might have given them, because Doe said that they created some facsimile crashes, the Luciferians did, to try to look like the Roswell crashes. I don't know if they got an engine from the Roswell or the other next level spacecraft crashes or not. But whatever, the backwards engineer came up with it as that kind of an element, and they're thinking that that's what was giving them the ability to do the anti-gravity and also travel at high speeds, in addition to having the weight of the spacecraft being very strong but very light, because of what Brazel said he found of that material that was like tin foil, but you couldn't break it, you couldn't cut it with a welding torch, you couldn't burn it, you couldn't so they're looking for those elements too, mining asteroids, right? Because they know that a lot of the minerals come from, on the planet, maybe all of them, from the bombardment of comets and asteroids. That, like, the one asteroid that just recently came by had a lot of nickel on it. Well, maybe that's Apophis. No, I did want to talk about that because someone brought it up the other day. Apophis. Apoefis. And it was really funny when I read that pronunciation. Apophis sounds very much like Apophis. In fact, if you don't pronounce the E, then it would be P-O-E, might be sound like poo, because there's a little bit of an E sound, right? I don't know. I may be wrong about that. A linguist might be having a fit right now with the way I'm botching this. But the reason I'm kind of grinning about this is because, well, for another reason that I actually just remembered, Apophis was the word that we used for elimination of gas from the vehicle. You know, that humans would call a fart. Apophis. No, that's not right. They didn't call it Apophis. They would say that was a poofoofis. 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 How many times am I going to say it? I just want to make sure I'm saying it right in the way that they said it. Apophis. Apophis So it's a different kind of a gas. Wow. Or maybe that's the exhaust part of it. It's something that's going to extinguish us. We'll see the next level can do that very quickly. Because the foo isn't part of that, right? Apophis is different from foo-fis. So the foo is inside that as if there was something stimulating it, stimulating what's inside of it, and something resulting from what's inside of it in those syllables. Remember how it was, the Foo Fighters was the first name for flying saucers? Poo-foo. So it's the coming of a spacecraft that's going to fizz. It's going to fizzle the Earth. Or use nuclear fission on the Earth. Fission the Earth. They said it was going to be ended, the civilization was going to end by fire this time. That's what Revelation talks about. And there's other references to that. And there's, of course, the Revelation 16 where it talks about the sun doing that. And so it's no surprise that the sun is causing the droughts, except for the people that don't think there's anything truth in that material, or can't see the common sense that the sun is the greatest heat supplier and heat taker awayer of the Earth. Carrington event, right? Every day, droughts, frozen. It is interesting that I'm going to go back to the other screen. That when these happened was in October 24th and October 28th. The CME and the sun prominence. And I remember after when they happened, I had the thought of see if we see heat on the planet. And I don't know about you all, but it went down from being as low as the 20s one time for a couple days, and the 30s maybe 4 or 5 days, and then all of a sudden it went up to where now it's like 70 in the heat of the day. 2 or 3 days in a row. And I got one more coming tomorrow, I think, and then our cool front comes in. So it's like, whoa, maybe that actually did happen, and maybe the next level was even behind it, so that I could talk about it and see if anybody else makes that connection. Certainly people would say that, oh, that's just a coincidence. Or you're making it up, Sawyer. Which I'm not making it up. I have no reason to make it up. The last thing I want to do is make it up. Because the way my brain works, if I did something like that, I would forget what I said. And I would say something different the next time. But what reason would I have to mislead anybody? I'm not making any money off of anybody. I'm selling a book every. I mean, sometimes it goes in spurts where I get 2 or 3 in a week or 2 week time, and then sometimes I go like one a month. It's probably about the regular pattern. There's no pattern really. I don't even know how many subscribers I have anymore. Anyway, when I say I have subscribers, it sounds like, people are subscribing to me, but what they're actually subscribing to is hearing some of the experience related to T and O and what I can come up with in how it might apply to the current events and our lives and what to expect, which I know I'm not necessary for, but perhaps I can help with some degree. And also go to the chat room and see what's on your minds. Welsh Dragon says, we are going to build moon bases to make easier journeys to Mars, to make easier journeys to even further destinations, to mine objects in the Kuiper Belt. Yes, I'm aware of that. That's another one of the reasons. I think they want to mine Ceres. I can't imagine why they wouldn't want to mine Ceres, dwarf planet Ceres, with what they've been seeing there. And Booster Spartacus of the Watch says, again, I haven't smoked marijuana since before the lockdown. Has saved me about $40 a week. Wow, cool. Booster says, saying hi to. Is that the first time you said something? No. So you're not saying hi to somebody else, I guess. High hand. Oh, you're high on your hand. I don't know. I'm being silly. I don't know what that means. But Harm Van Newton says, morning. Yes, that's right. I think Harm was from someplace in Europe, was it? Let's see. I almost have it. In my head. Don't quite got it yet. It wasn't England or Ireland or France, I don't think. Or Germany. Holland? Or Netherlands, maybe? Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Welsh. Oh, Welsh. Oh, no, he's saying, Kathy Southwestern saying hello to Welsh Dragon. Anyway, Booster says then, is it morally wrong for a human to become aware of the next level, but then decide that they prefer a selfish, hedonistic lifestyle on Earth? No, it's not. There's no moral wrongness to it. It just means that they'll end up getting what they believe, what they want, and they won't get what the next level provides necessarily, or as quickly as they could otherwise. Doesn't mean that they weren't doing something the best that they could. in the next level's mind, and so the next level wants to save them for a future opportunity. If they were separating from the world in some way, and they were standing up for Tian-Do in some way, but if they weren't doing any of that, well, then they're just taking their chances, with what happens in the future, and they may not care. And so, but what I'm saying is that that spirit or that soul, well, it's not for me to decide, because there's always exceptions to things. But the overriding qualification that we need to apply, if to some degree, is the overriding one is that that we need to believe in Tian-Do to the degree that we recognize that they came from the kingdom that created the planet and all its inhabitants, and then we need to stand for them, and I don't think that means standing for them in our mind, because service is always part of the next level. If somebody doesn't want to be in service, then they don't want to be in the next level. And they don't need people to just believe in them. That doesn't do anything for them. It's not like they're earning this. It's not like they're using us either. But there's function. Their lives are functional. See, it's the idea from the religions that makes it into you believe, and then you just do whatever you want to do, pretty much, and you get saved for believing alone. Now, that might have been so 2,000 years ago, but that's not the criteria now, because the bar was raised. Not just because of that, but the bar keeps on going up. But the next level also keeps pace with the bar going up to provide us with the tools to still overcome our human characteristics. And so you may go for a period of time to where you just want to do your thing, whatever it is, and then you might get to a point to where you say, you know what, I've burned out on this. This isn't really that much fun anymore. So why do I keep doing it? So maybe I should try to, Tian-Do, can you help me get out of this a little bit? You might have the bravery to say that. It is a kind of bravery, I think, because you know that if you believe in them to any degree, not you said aware of the next level. See, but I'm applying this to people that believe in Tian-Do as being from the next level that created the planet. Okay, that have physical bodies. I'm not talking about some spiritual state of mind, because we don't have a state of mind, because that makes it sound like it's solid. It's got to be a flexible condition of mind growth. So because they also said that you have to stand for them and accept the consequences. So that's not standing in your mind only, or there wouldn't be any consequences. That's a better way of showing those connections, best I can. And even though there's consequences in the mind too, but the main consequences that the next level cares about is consequences to our humanness. In other words, someone might find fault with us and decide to take us out. And it might not be a conscious decision. They just might see us and they're angry and they've got a gun, and so you're in the way, and so you're going to be the victim. And so at that point, when someone becomes the victim, then they get accelerated to whatever they believed before they died. If they believed in Ti and Do, the next level, maybe that's where they gravitate to. If they don't really believe in Ti and Do, or not aware of them, but they separated from the humanists, so they were seeing the governments as being poisonous mammals, because they were acting as if the next level doesn't exist, and they were teaching people that by behavior and ways and their proclamations that the next level doesn't exist, and that's the way we believe. That's what we get. We get what they get, and so we basically hang on around any human vehicles that are around that, or even in the discordant world, we end up gravitating towards the same people that think like us, and the next level can choose to save those spirits or not. But at a certain point, the only reason they would need, that I can see, I could be wrong about this, that they would need the spirits that... See, the spirits could have also developed some pretty good disciplines, taking control of the vehicle. So, the next level may decide to, judge them in that way, considering what they were up against in their lives. And so you don't know what's going to happen. That's the real answer to that. I don't know. But I took it around Jericho. But maybe you all have a mind that works kind of the way mine does, maybe even better. I mean, not even better, but I'm not saying that mine works that well. But I think it's got some potential, although I could be in an illusion about that. I can be just going down this fairy tale way of thinking, right? But I am always trying to tie it to things that Ti and Do taught. But of course, you can get to a place to where you can link everything together, like the people that believe that we're all gods, and all we got to do is accept that we are gods, and then therefore everything we do becomes the hand of God upon somebody else. There are people that believe that. They don't necessarily use that terminology, but some of them do. The God within. It's the ye are gods. Do talked about it in 88 update. If I was going to do a film, a documentary on anything, I would base it on storytelling of 88 update. There's the script right there. Now, I know people, have different ideas of doing things, and I'm not against any of them. But it certainly, that'd be a great documentary to write, to make. If anybody, wants to have something that they can do to stand for Ti and Do, I mean, you don't need me to suggest these things. I'm not suggesting it, actually. I'm just thinking out loud on, that's standing for them because of all the misinformation in Wikipedia and stuff. So why don't you do it? I know. I know. It's not easy to do these things. And it's harder to, well, it's not even necessarily right or wrong to have someone have an idea about a certain kind of way they want to make a movie or a documentary. I'm not comparing that with making a movie or a documentary about 88 Update as being one better than the other. They're not. Because one never knows whether the next level, for someone that wants to make a movie, the next level is going to take an interest in that person. Even if they don't think of themselves as a student. It doesn't matter. And especially if they want to portray everything as real as possible. And real meaning also the context is a huge part of it, right? Because you can say, oh, well, they had a lot of rules. Okay, well, what was the context of those rules? Why did they have a lot of rules? Was it just so that the leaders could control people? That's what a lot of people think is happening in a cult. And that does happen in some cults. Maybe all of them, except for T&O's cult, didn't do that. Because they didn't have a need for us to believe in them. It wasn't about the numbers. If one had graduated, they would be for joy, they said in the next level. I think they kind of felt like this was a big graduation class. And that was when T was still in her vehicle. I think she felt that. They said there's only thousands of members of the next level, not millions. They didn't say how many thousands. That's why I say they didn't say there are millions. I'll go back to the chat room. Joseph Smith. No, I'm talking about if you're still around, Booster. I know you said you had to go, I think, right? But Moroni. Interesting, it's got that name of like moron. Moroni. More on Moroni. Yeah, he's the one that dropped his trumpet, which is on top of the gold dome in Salt Lake City, where T&O, or not T&O, but Doe had us visit in 1994 for the groups. I think all the groups ended up converging there and visiting for the day. We didn't have any instructions. We just walked around inside and out. I think we got to go inside. Maybe not. Yeah, I got to go inside. I don't know if we talked to anybody. We didn't have instruction to talk to people or not. I don't think I talked to anybody. But we were in talking mode to the public. I think I was there with Chakoti. We're partners. I don't see her talking to anybody either. So, at that point, And then cinnamon morophils says Venus colon DDDDDD. Okay? You're talking a language I don't know. Oh, that's the smiling face on the side with a big mouth. smiling big mouth. Or is that a dropping of the jaw because Theodore's information is so mind-boggling and expansive, and I don't know if you've been on the in the live stream long enough to hear anything like that. And Booster says, last week you were talking about working in restaurants. When I worked at a restaurant, like 40% of the job was coming up with snappy comebacks and bantering with coworkers. Really? Well, see, I was in the classroom for most of that time, and I didn't do any of that with anybody. In fact, I had problems with the people I worked with because sometimes when they would get in arguments, bantering with the wait staff, like the cooks, yelling at them and cursing at them and all kinds of stuff like that. And yelling, four-letter words and stuff because they were under pressure to get the work done, and during the rush, the cooks, and I was cooking, and I would say, after it was done, I wouldn't say it on the spot, but I would say after it was done, I said, you don't have to, get so angry at them, or something like that, and that just made them more angry with me. But one fellow, it might have helped a little bit. I don't know. Because he didn't, treat me badly after that, but I didn't have that job very long. But I think that was for another reason. Or maybe because of the way he was treating me at that point, I then had to find another job. I think that's true. I didn't remember it that clearly until now. Okay, I'll go to the next. Then Cinnamorophils says greater than started streaming 108 minutes ago. Oh, wow. 108 minutes ago. I'm at 153 now. Then it says 108 is a good number. 108. All right. I'll try to remember to go back to it. It says 107 minutes ago for me. Okay. Todd from work. Oh, it says 107 minutes ago for me. Okay. That's when you came in. I got you. And then Todd from work says, are you from the future? Talking to Cinnamon. Cinnamon says, according to YouTube, it's 108 minutes. Well, I've been on this live stream for 60 plus 54. So 114, right? "109, 110, never again. 108 is a positive number in Eastern traditions." Cinnamon says, Todd from work-based. Yes, apparently it is, but I don't know. There was recently a ceremony where some followers of Om chanted a mantra 108 times. George says, hi, God loves you, man. If I was in the neighborhood, I'd bring you some of my home brew brown dog beer. Oh, cool. I probably would try it because of you making a gift of it, but I don't regularly drink beer, but I like it. But I don't like the alcohol. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I mean, if I went to somebody's house and, it was a party or something, I would drink some. Good because it's fun to party when you're a little bit inebriated. But I get very drunk very fast to where I get dizzy, and that's not good. I mean, on a half a beer, an ordinary Bud or something, I'm not quite slurring my words. Cinnamon Ruffle says, I just want you to know I appreciate you streaming for us and spreading your message. Thank you. I appreciate that. George Abraham says, it's got anti-gout medication already included. Anti-gout medication already included. What, the vaccinations? Or I'm not sure what that applies to. I did recognize the person, let's see, that last time recognized me as having met me in LG many years ago. But I think that was Lake George, New York. 'Cause I used to go there and do some busking. But then I got kicked out because I played too loud. In those days, I had my Roland Street Cube amp. It's not a cube, actually. It's not the cube, because I have that too. But it was the Roland amp that's got 4 speakers on it and got 4 channels, 2 mic channels, or mic and guitar or instrument channels, however you want to use them. And so I would use my loop station to play some blues, 16-bar blues or something, and then I'd play harmonica with it or something like that, or a saxophone or flute, or even tell stories about the UFO sighting I had, or which I, sometimes would tell, and without talking about T&O, because I didn't want to get thrown out too fast. But then there were other people across the street also doing the same thing, and so I probably turned it up too loud a few times, and so I got some, some complaints, and ended up meeting, because I bought a license there. And for whatever it's worth, because I bought a license and they discontinued my ability to play there, they allowed me to go to the mayor and make my case. So I went and met with the mayor, and he said, well, too loud. He said, well, there's always somebody that complains about everything, right? So he gave me another chance. But then I think he came down when I was playing, and I was trying to keep it low. I know it wasn't as loud as I ever did it before. And I think I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I just had the vibe that it was him. And then I lost the opportunity again, the second time. But then I found other places to go. Anyway, I didn't mean to get so much time on that, but it's just a silly story. But you know, it is part of the routine, I think, that that when you, because I did talk to people about Tiendo. That's why that person had met me and came to this, because I gave him the link, because I've been broadcasting for a long time, not live streams, but making videos. But what happens is, I believe, I think is truthful, is that when we start talking out loud, influences around us and around other people that are hearing us get upset. That the ones that don't believe in this or think it's dangerous and so they know, since we're doing it, they can find us, I guess. I guess even the influences that are around you all. But I don't know if the next level kind of protects us from some of that. So that, nobody, well, I'm not going to go any further than that, but because of that, like the people in the town, for instance, could be subject to those influences that don't like us. Like actually one time several times at bars or outdoors, I did talk to somebody about Tiendo, or was trying to sing and tell a story while I was playing the drums or something, and I would just say something, and talk about UFOs or something, and say something quick about Tiendo, and then not say anything more when I know there were people standing around that could have heard it, and one person I talked to about the two witnesses and Revelation 12 interpretation as being the two witnesses, and I thought that they came already, and they had the names Tiendo. And I said this to what looked like a young, even high school age girl, and or I don't know, I shouldn't call her a girl because you can be 17 and you can be a woman. If you can, give birth, then you're coming into womanhood. So anyway, but she was with her friends standing around in a circle talking very close to where I was, and she ended up coming over to me and asking me about something I said. And I told her about Revelation 12:1 as evidence that God can come back as a woman. Maybe that's what I talked about. So she said she didn't think that's what that meant. She thought it meant that the church was the woman in Revelation 12. And I said to her, well, but how can the church, who are the children and the fruit, be born to the throne? Well, I can see how she was thinking that, right? Because she can think that born to the throne meant become a member of heaven. No, she was doing the birthing. How can the students do the birthing of the man-child to the throne? And then in that same chapter, talking about the believers in them in two different places. One being those with Michael and his angels fighting against the Luciferians and their human believers, or the Lucifer and his associates, being the same thing as like Do with his students, in relationship to Do as being the sun and the moon in Revelation 12, where the moon is the footstool. In other words, the way that humans with their souls from the next level can take a step up into membership on T's crew. And Do is that step. They need to go through Do to take that step. So that's, and I didn't tell this person all that. I just said that first, that thing about the woman. How could the woman give birth to the son to the throne, to the man-child to the throne? How can that woman be the children giving birth to themselves? Would have been a better way to say it. I'm sorry, I kept on just going, kept on missing that. I knew I kept on missing the point there. Maybe a sign that I'm getting tired. I definitely am getting tired. So after that happened, I remember going home and thinking about it and thinking, gosh, what if she goes to her pastor? Because I know she was very familiar with the Revelations and had a pastor, and tells him that she met this guy that was saying that Heaven's Gate people were two witnesses, and this interpretation of Revelation 12. And what if that pastor then thought, Heaven's Gate? You mean that cult that killed themselves? And he was out there preaching on the street, influencing my my students or my constituents or believers or children. Some of them think of that. They think of themselves as the father and their parish as their children. They actually think that way. The Pope thinks that way, I think. Or if he doesn't think that way, he doesn't show it. Because he does, oh, my son, that's the way they talk. When that couldn't be further than the truth. He's way behind them, potentially, because he's so brainwashed into thinking that religion is his God. It's the wrong God. I'm not judging the person, but how could you continue in that job? But maybe he's doing the best he can. Okay, I got to just put that to him. The next level is his judge, not me. But I can criticize what he's teaching other people by his behavior and ways and the things he says, and how he's turning their eyes from what they could be seeing. He should be saying, those people that were Heaven's Gate that said they were the two witnesses, have you actually read what they were talking about and how this relates to what Jesus taught and Jesus taught and Jesus taught and Jesus taught and Jesus taught over and over and over again to everything Jesus taught? And all these things are coming to pass that Jesus taught. And it says in the two witnesses that they were going to both be Christs through Zechariah, with Zechariah's visit by an angel in chapter 4, and told him that there would be 2 candlesticks and 2 olive trees. It's the same way the book of Revelations talks about, which is the Old Testament, which is the same way the book of Revelation talks about as being the 2 candlesticks that stand before the God of the earth. In other words, before the Chief of Chiefs, before T. It says in Zechariah, the angel says, Zechariah says, "Who are these?" And the angel says, the messenger says, "These are the anointed ones that stand before the God of the earth." Something like that. And how you wouldn't relate that to, but yet I've seen many interpretations of that don't refer to that Zechariah section. I'm talking about people that this is their job. They write commentary on all different versions of the Bible, and they'll give you interpretations of 6 or 8 different versions. And then give you their own. They're blinded from it by the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls. They're like T&W used to joke in a sense that they were holding their hands over people's eyes and ears. Like, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, where the evil is the truth. Well, that's right. They were saying that about Apophis, that they believe it's packed with nickel and iron, and that it has a 1 in 150,000 chance of impacting or hitting the Earth in 2068, but in 2029, a small possible chance of hitting. Like that they think right now its trajectory is showing that it's going to be 23,441 miles away, and that that's like 1/10 of the way from the Earth to the Moon. That's the closest an asteroid has ever come. There's some that have come closer than halfway to the Moon, because the Moon is 238,900 miles away from the Earth, averages. It's not exact because it changes, and but that it's going to be quite visible if it comes that close. Hours, it'll be visible to the unaided eye in 2029. That might be the Armada. That might be Atlas that broke into an Armada. Kind of looked that way. If you look at the pictures of Atlas. I should show that since I'm bringing it up. Let's see, where is it? That's a square object in the sun. Let's see what Obama said. No, Joe Biden said this. Oh yeah, he put this message out for a long time. On checking the the Facebook. You know, I wondered if Facebook backed off a little bit then. And so that might have been even something that the next level was stepping in to give Biden that idea, that wording, or his speechwriter or whoever else, puts that together. It says, I'm not telling you all that can't see on your screen what I'm talking about on the screen that I put up, but it's... But there's those lights in series in the top left corner in two different shots of it. And then there's that butterfly nebula that I thought was interesting because of T and Do's depiction of the butterfly as being the human metamorphosis into member of the next level as a butterfly that now can fly, literally, even, or just defy gravity. Not that they go shooting around by themselves. I mean, I'm not saying they can't do that, but they would only do that if they had a reason to do it and they were in an environment that would allow that to happen. Maybe they do. I don't know. In Soho, to me, I would be bored by that after a while if I was able to do that. Where working a job like, monitoring people that are asking for help on the planet, that would be much more fun. Soho 4050, Soho 4052, Soho 4049. 3 different spots on the sun. The 3. Very interesting. That 3 is coming up again. I don't think I probably did that justice. Because that shows that the sun there with the 3 objects on it. Is that the sun there? Yeah, that's the sun. On the bottom left, to the left of my picture of me. And the other picture I was talking about with the Soho was right above me, pointing to objects on the sun that look different than this other one. That was on 2020, August 7th. I don't know, I wasn't trying to go there. Was it fireballs? No, it's a fireball chart per year. And it was interesting to me because it went up. You can see how it was kind of going up the same. Well, it made a big jump here. I don't know. I don't want to get into that right now. Maybe there was nothing to that. Scorpion kind of picture. That's how I was calling it. It's hard to see here, but it kind of looks like it's got an insect face. I don't know. I don't know where that came from exactly. But let me go up. Oh, the 3. Yeah, I've done that many times. Oh man, I'm getting wiped out here. You know what? I forgot what I was even going for. So I'm going to skip it. Okay, George Abraham has been saying a lot of things. So let me see what he's saying. Hi, God loves you, man. Oh, I read that one. You're going to give me the beer, right? I read the next one too. It's got anti-gout medication already included. I read that. If you can feel like you are making a difference, crank it. All right, I hear you. The birthing sounds more like the elements. It's doing its terrible cycle. It gets so bad that it's better to let people be filthy or unrighteous if they want to be. Well, yeah, it is right. I mean, the next level, they want people to become what they want to become, whether that becomes a fruit that turned rotten or a fruit that doesn't turn rotten. The whole realm in between. Then George says, God will still be the good one like he usually is. You'll see. Things will be healed up again. Oh, yes, they will be, but I don't think it's going to happen in this civilization. That's what Tiendo taught, that the recycling was part of the cycle of civilizations. And George says, it gets so all encompassing that it makes people take it personal and wonder if they are in the book of life. Well, I think it's healthy to wonder if we're in the book of life, because to assume it, I think, is making a big assumption. And that's what Tiendo taught. George Abraham says, it's as good as it can be, and creation is pretty impressive. But God will make a pit stop for Joseph to give him a handmade cloak and tell Job that he makes no sense, but he loves him. Okay, that's fine, but George, you're losing me on that. I'm not very good with allegories. George says, and that place needs to be taken down, rather. Then Booster says, what's the deal? Alien abductions. Do they really happen? Who does it? And for what purpose? Well, yeah. There are aliens, and they do abduct people, and they take their sperm and eggs, and they grow babies in the women that they impregnate, they put back on the earth, and then they follow them. They give them some little implants, little like metal balls and things like that have been found in people, and so they can track people that they've implanted with a mixture of, because it's part of their experiments. Sometimes the child is born on the spacecraft. I've heard stories of. And the woman doesn't even remember it. I'm not sure how that happened, when. Maybe that's a fluke. Maybe that was not true. But I'm not saying everything is true that you read. But we were studying the books by two different people that were doing reverse hypnosis with many different people that were claiming to have been abducted. And he was finding a lot of similarities. And a lot of the things made sense with the way Tiendo believed that aliens, not members of the next level, would be doing that. Like in other words, propagating on a spacecraft. Because they knew that the next level didn't need human vehicles. That they came from, they didn't need to test human vehicles by having them do things like that on the spacecraft. Because that's animal behavior. It's not that it's morally wrong or anything. It's just not, it's like, like animals sometimes, animals just poop wherever they're walking sometimes, right? If they did that on a spacecraft, the next level wouldn't like that. But there's also a vibration to it. That's just crude. It's primitive. So anyway, now I'm not saying all abductions are that way, because humans, I think, are doing those kind of things too sometimes, and that's why there's so many missing person reports sometimes, because you never can tell what governments will justify. And see the people in the science labs, they want all kinds of organs for testing. Now they get a lot from the dead people, but there's certain things that they can't test with, like a dead brain, unless it's got things that it's doing. And so I wouldn't put it past them whether they would either take fetuses, which I know they do this. Well, I say I know it, but I don't know it, okay? I don't doubt, let me put it this way. I'm glad I corrected myself there, because it is important that I only say what I know when I know Tiendo have given me that. Because otherwise, even though I might feel like I know it, I could be wrong. But from all the information from Tiendo, it seems like it's highly possible that there's people that are stealing humans and I mean, could even be offering them a program to be experimental on a drug or something, and then who knows do what with, Maybe that's the way they do it the most times. That is the way they do it. Duh. I know that. And even the intelligence agencies are doing that. They have been doing that for a long time with psychics and, mind control testing and things like that. Philadelphia experiment, I was talking about that, right, with that guy Nichols. And anyway, but the next level doesn't do that. They don't pick up humans to prod them to try to get their hormones or whatever. That's another thing that they can want. Or to grow new vehicles. That's their purpose for that. So they can grow new vehicles for those, because their vehicles that they have on board those spacecrafts don't live forever. They might live longer than vehicles that aren't in that atmosphere with those behaviors and ways and those different forms of nutrition that whatever they have. I don't know. They might be living off of who knows what. And George says, we are stuck having ignored balanced havens for a long time. It's sensationalized. Hell's angels will be cast down. Satellites and equipment projecting the separation. This place was not built to behave that way from the beginning, to support indefinite man-made complex. Nature gets its turn. Cheers, man. Keep safe. Thank you. That's right. It's true. It wasn't built according to T and No. I'm saying it's true. Humans weren't built to become the way that many of them have become, to be scavengers or just predators. Predators, that's the better way of saying it. Deceitful. Manipulating. Self-centered 100%. Even though, they're giving themselves to other people that believe like them or depend upon them. So they could be selfless also, but self-centered to the degree that they don't know that there's beings that they are children, potential children to, if they tried to be, if they wanted to be, to where they would lose their ego to have. I mean, I've been reminded of this recently because I didn't know what T meant by telling me that I was a little too pleased with self. I really didn't understand that. She told me that was one of the things that would keep me off the spacecraft. And she told me that in a note that she sent. My understanding was that everybody was going to get such a note. And I had 3 things in my note. My note said that I like to be seen as something special, which I disputed after I left the classroom. I didn't know what she was talking about during the classroom. But like 10 years after leaving, maybe not 10 years, maybe 6 or 7 years, I remember thinking, no, T, I don't want to be seen as something special. I want to be something special. But she was right. I learned some years later that I have this programming that enjoys being seen as something special. Now, I don't get that. I mean, you can say that, am I getting that from right now? Looking special? Well, I don't really feel that, and that's why I don't do more of these. If I really got off on it, I would be doing one of these every day if I could, because I'm getting other people paying attention to me and sometimes telling me that I'm doing a good job and whatever. And so I didn't really know. But then I saw in my life that it was, I saw the difference of being pleased. Right, I already talked about that, I think. But then the other thing that was in the note said, likes to be seen as, a little too pleased with self. A little too pleased with self. That's just the way she wrote it. A little too pleased with self. And so I didn't know what she meant until recently. I'm talking about months or less than that even. See, one of the things I've been doing is during the daylight hours and the nice weather, I do things around, like I'm harvesting wood to burn for the winter. which I hadn't done that for a number of years because I had the bad back problems and bad I had sciatica pinch and I had the Lyme disease. I couldn't hardly walk, so I couldn't carry wood into the house, and it was just too much to do. And harvesting the wood is tremendous physical work because I've got to throw the wood from like a like 50 yards in order to get it to a place to where I can load it into the car, the SUV that I have, and then bring it down to the wood pile and then unload it. So each of those pieces of wood, I cut them small, can weigh like 20 pounds. Now I'm getting off the track. So I did hurt my back again after doing this for a number of days in a row. But I recognized after I was done doing that for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours at a shot, that I was pleased with myself. I feel like I enjoyed, like I did accomplish something. That's how, so I felt like I accomplished something today. And I was pleased with what I accomplished. And there's nothing wrong with that. But T said that I was a little too pleased with it. Now, I don't know if she was referring to being too pleased with the physical labor. I think she was more referring to thinking that I had overcome more than I had overcome. Which I should have known right from the beginning when I flunked because I gave into sexuality with myself and didn't change and let that continue and then left because, I've talked about this many times, so I'm not shying away from talking about it. But but said before that I had thought that I had control over that area of my vehicle and the influences of the vehicle. Which was a phony. I was a phony, actually, in the classroom. I didn't know it, though. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know it. You know what I mean? It's like doing something over and over again that you've justified in your head as being okay. And not allowing yourself to recognize that you're doing something and act on the sly. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, the act on the sly that I was doing was, that's the way T and Do talked about it, as act on the sly. And a number of people were doing things acting on the sly, like Destody would hide, he hid food underneath his mattress on his bunk. An apple. Anyway, so my thing though was much worse than that, in my opinion, because you see, we were not taught, but we were given the procedure that as long as if we had a nocturnal emission while we were sleeping, and we didn't remember doing anything to stimulate it, in our, without like touching ourselves or anything, that it was just not to be felt guilty about or anything, to think that it's just energy off the top. Okay? Energy off the top. Okay, so Tiendo gave us a procedure that there would be a stack of washcloths, that when that happened and we woke up in the middle of the night perhaps to go to the bath chamber and sign out one of these washcloths and then use it to clean yourself up and get a new pair of seat covers. That's what the word they had for underwear, because seat covers had a different vibration to it. It didn't refer to our past human programming. So that was evidence of using T in those mind when we would think in those terms and talk in those terms. We were using their mind because they gave us that. And that's what mind is. It's information. It's programming. It's good programs. It's like when you have a program to take a bath when you're dirty and you stink. That's a good program to have. We're choosing to use the program. And so the chooser becomes bigger because of using those good programs. More powerful, actually. More able to discipline the vehicle. To take over the vehicle like a horse. But anyway, so I would do that, but then I felt ashamed of it. And I felt like I guess I didn't believe, though, that we should not feel guilty about it. Because I recognized that in my subconscious, I was giving into it to some degree by, letting my eyes linger on a part of the female body of my female classmates, that, or on something on TV that was like a loosely clad person, or what I consider to be an attractive female, or not having any thoughts about doing anything with them, but just that kind of a lingering. Giving in to the vehicles, paying more attention to something that it doesn't need to pay attention to and have thoughts about. Even just not even thoughts, but feelings of being attracted to something. Okay? So, all right, I got off the track there, but started thinking about something else. But oh yeah, I was telling you that story. So I would clean myself up without the washcloth, so I didn't have to sign it out and reveal that I had had the nocturnal emission. That was deceitful. Even though I didn't stimulate the nocturnal emission for years and years and years, for 18 years, maybe that would happen to me once every 2 or 3 or 4 months, maybe. Anyway, so I forgot now why I described all that for the 10th time. And then Booster says, sorry, would you be able to detect if a person or animal you came across had a soul planted in their vehicle? Well, no. I mean, well, first of all, an animal doesn't get a soul. An animal has a spirit that's part of the animal's genes. The spirit is like external to the biology. It's the mind of the animal. They have their own mind, and you can see that more in domesticated animals than wild animals. I mean, because they spend time with you in the house and all that, and you get to know them, and you see how they change, and they learn, and they show that when they're jealous, and when they're sad and stuff like that. Anyway, but so in that way you're seeing the good characteristics of that animal as the animal's changing, and and obeying the master when the master says sit, stay there, and even though you want to come, lick me or whatever, just stay there. That's good discipline. That's a mind that's disciplining itself. And so in that way, you could say that that's like a progression towards the way that humans need to learn to discipline their vehicles. So there's nothing lost in that, but only humans are given souls by the next level, and there's different types of souls, and they are physical, like plasma-like physicality, and they're actually deposited into, wrapped around. I always get it mixed up whether the soul is wrapped around the vehicle or the vehicle is wrapped around the soul. I think it's the soul is wrapped around the vehicle because it extends outside the vehicle. And that's why they compared it to being clothing. That the soul is the clothing wrapped around the vehicle in the record books, and so yeah, you might get a better picture from it if you read Incarnating and Discarnating. Talks a lot about the soul on the Heaven's Gate book. And I think I have a link to that on my blog. And I can send it to you if you want. Just let me know if you don't know how to get there yourself. Or send me an email to sawyerhg@yahoo.com, and I'll send you that one file if you want, or the whole Heaven's Gate book, or a lot of information. Anybody that wants it, I have. That's is, of course, free because the next level left those things behind for us. Anything else about the soul? So can I recognize somebody that has a soul? Well, I think I could say possibly, but because the signs of it, which are also written in the Heaven's Gate book, and I think Junodi's document, is that, and I think Doe talked about it also in the Beyond Human tapes, is that they're breaking away from their attachments in the world. They're conquering their addictions. They're trying to conquer their addictions. Let me put it that way. Okay, they're putting out effort to do that. They're trying to improve their vehicles, the health of their vehicles. They're looking for the truth that's happening in the world about the things that are happening in the world, as opposed to what things are propaganda and what things are, mistruths and misinformation. They want to know what's true. Those are the people that are showing the most evidence of having next level mind in them, which means that that's evidence of the souls that are returning from a previous relationship with members of the next level. Now, everybody that's in the religions doesn't necessarily mean that their vehicles have souls, but their vehicles, those vehicles, were designed to have a genetic match for what the returning souls need to accomplish in their overcoming by taking over that vehicle that's the match. So in other words, let's say one vehicle had a lot of lessons of the becoming very powerful, being a leader, a government leader, a king or a queen, or something. This example might not actually apply, because maybe when people get to that level of development in terms of human development, maybe they can't get rid of that. They're so addicted to it. Addicted meaning, they're so convinced that this is their quest. They are acting on God's behalf. And a lot of people in those positions think that way. Whether they express it or not in those terms is a different story. But, like the prophets or whatever. But, so those are some of the characteristics that I can think of that would show for that moment that person has a soul. Now, it's possible that they don't have a soul, and or no, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible that they don't have a soul if they have those characteristics. Well, yeah, I guess if they got those characteristics from being a match because of the genetic history of the spirit that's growing that whole time in that invisible root system of the human kingdom, then the bottom line is we don't know. I said this before. I went through Jericho. We don't know if they do or not. We can suspect, though. I think that's safe to say. We can suspect they do. But see, the thing is, the problem with that thinking is I mean, it's good thinking, to be aware of this is the way it works. But to talk to people like to go up to somebody and say, or even think, you might have a soul because you're seeking the truth. Automatically, you're setting them up, and you're also taking a dive because automatically somebody's going to think, well, I'm better if I have a soul, right? I'm closer to God, right? I was made by God, right? And that other person who doesn't have that behavior, even though you might not know what behavior they have that is godly, doesn't do that. So you're basically putting people, it ends up being a judgmental thing. It's very difficult to talk about that subject without saying a lot about it. And even starting with the disclaimer that we don't know. Many times I've said, when I've been asked questions about who has souls or not, I've said I don't know. But this time I started to go off on a tangent there. And it doesn't mean that I was referring to things that Doe said or Junodi wrote on Doe's behalf in the Heaven's Gate book. So I'm not blaspheming by saying those things. But so it's one thing to understand it, but it's another thing to express it to somebody. Unless they're asking about it. If they ask, what did T and Doe teach about the soul? Or in some way. But then put your disclaimers in there and then explain it to them best you can. And if you feel a vibration of that you're greater than them, know that that's the Luciferian vibration. And tell it to take a hike. You don't have to get all down about it. You don't have to get all, oh gosh, I'm evil because I felt the Luciferian vibration. No, we all feel Luciferian vibrations. The misinformation is saturating the human kingdom. And it comes from them. Otherwise, we wouldn't gloat about it to ourselves or to others. I have felt that vibration of gloating when I'm by myself. When I'm talking about T and Doe with somebody else, I don't feel that vibration. Because first of all, I don't give myself time to feel it. And second, well, I don't want to say I can never feel it because we don't want to test ourselves. Because then you can start to kind of have like a radar, kind of looking for it, and that radar becomes like an open door. And I can even feel like I'm talking about it now. It's like opening the door to that vibration, and I don't want that vibration, so I'm going to say, get the fuck away from me. I don't say it in those 4-letter words generally, but whatever it takes. T and Doe didn't use that 4-letter word. It's just crude terminology. That's all it is. But it's also cultural. And they were the cult of cults, so their culture didn't use that term. They were the only cult of truth. Well, no, they were the cult of truth. Not the only cult of truth, because other cults can have some truth. The whole human kingdom has truth in it, because the next level saw to it that there was a lot of truth in the human kingdom. But it gets suppressed, and it gets mixed in with mistruths and ideas about what reality is, and that are different, and all different philosophies and different types of religions and whatnot. And no religion, which is fine too. It's a good step away from religion, because religion can be a killer of souls, because of people getting glued to them and thinking there's nothing else better to think about. And when they hear something that sounds different that is talking about the same thing in a strange way, science fiction way perhaps. They think that that's the devil. I'm not going to listen to that. When that could be the very thing that they need to get them to move past what growth they had as a part of a religion. Okay, next, in Truthing the World says, Naama seduces men. Naama seduces men. In their dreams, in order to release a nocturnal emission, loss of life force, brief loss, weakening of consciousness, power, sister of Tubal Cain, who brought metallurgy here. Huh, interesting. Right, now Tienda was saying that if we didn't stimulate it, then it was no loss. It was more energy than we can deal with and make a positive out of. That was the way they were thinking about it. But by giving it away in the human kingdom and stimulating it to happen, instead of allowing it to just take place without our stimulus, which we would program ourselves when we went to bed to not, that if we were having a dream to where we were starting to compromise our decided upon goal, that we would wake up. And we used to program our vehicles before we went to sleep to not let our hands get beneath our waist. And so there was some examples of how we would stimulate the programming to not have it. So in other words, we're fighting against it with taking action and stimulating that programming. And that works. It actually works. Sister of Tubal Cain, who bought metallurgy here. Right, now, the lower forces know this works, and it does stimulate, the loss does stimulate losing something. So that's why they have their tantra, where they try to bring somebody to that right before having an exhaustion of their fluids, and then they have them channel that up through the chakras in their mind, and they believe that they get greater consciousness from that. And holding it in might actually give them greater consciousness, but stimulating it is taking it away to some degree. And it's I don't know what kind of consciousness they're getting, because it's really not like a thing about consciousness, so to speak, in a mystical sense. It's consciousness in knowing that that's not behavior of the next level, so I've got to accomplish that before I leave. It's functional. It's the functional consciousness that's more real than the spiritual consciousness of thinking I've elevated myself just by doing that, by suppressing that life force from being released. So you're getting a false sense of advancement. Because even if you could see it as increasing your power of thought, power of concentration, power of having common sense, which may be true, having better judgment, that can all be potentially true by suppressing that, I believe, things that Tiendo talked about, but over the years. And not all those keywords, but the one on having common sense, for sure. And if we're doing it for our self-elevation, then we're not doing, we're destroying the value of it, because it won't be pleasing the older member of the next level, and then the older member of the next level won't give us the next step in our growth to where we could eventually become a member of the next level. It just becomes a ritual kind of thing that gives you a mental high and perhaps some physical high as well, or some benefit, like I said, a physical high from the benefit of having more common sense or whatever. People look up to you, and so they give you, they honor you, and so you get a bigger ego that thinks you're more important than everybody else, and yet you could be on the bottom of the totem pole in terms of actual ability to overcome the humanness and grow into becoming a member of the next level. Truth in the World says, it is said that her beauty and skill caused the angels to fall and mate with her. Fellow demon woman, or Lilith Ingrat Machalat. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I try to, comment on the things, in a way that, relates to Tiendo, and, we did have Lilith added to our astrology. I mean, Tiendo, gave us the astrology as a game, and they would bring in books. They brought in books initially, and then they, many months later, brought in another book on the book of the Dark Moon Lilith, I think it was called. The Dark Moon Lilith. I think I'm about ready to quit for the night. I don't know. I mean, I know the Dark Moon Lilith. I remember reading about that in the astrological interpretations, but I didn't remember what you said, because those memories weren't very strong in my mind. But I just did want to mention, since you mentioned Lilith. Yeah, the other names that you're using, I don't know those names, but I don't doubt that there's different cultures and cultural, customs and traditions in terms of understanding about that same situation. That's provided to us. The lower forces are provided to us in order to overcome them, overcome what they want us to do. Because that's how we become members of the next level that can overcome everything that can be thrown at us. And then we can do a task like Adam had, that became Enoch, that became Moses, that became Elijah, that became Jesus. So Truth in the World says, the reason I bring that up, apart from your comment on nocturnal emissions, is because I just did a reverse speech analysis on a guy who said angels visit him at night. And his message was that they are going to visit other Christians at night. The same way, are going to visit other Christians at night the same way. His reversals said it was not angels, rather undead females who sound to me like succubus. So he was saying that that the angels were going to visit other Christians at night the same way. Yeah, well, actually, regarding, I don't know what to say about your reverse analysis of that, but because I haven't studied that, and I don't remember T and Do ever talking about that. But and I'm not saying that it can't have its accuracy in some ways, but I don't know how, what the mechanism of that would be off the top of my head, except for spirits. But the thing with Christians at night, the same way, that was taught by T and Do. They said that there were members of the next level that also members of the next level stimulated spirits to sometimes give people what they want. But in terms of visiting other Christians, Tino said that next level works with people through dreams to prepare them for the next day. That doesn't mean that you do that every day. It doesn't, have to do with the frequency of it. Just that that's what they do. And so that would be for the people that are asking for that kind of help. I don't know if they have automatic ways of doing that or they do it one by one. I would suspect it's like a one by one kind of thing, but I don't know. That suspicion isn't grounded in anything, so I take that back. But okay, so that's interesting. Truth in the world. That is very interesting. Because I mean, you can play it out that way. That the angels are, if the angels are the messengers from the next level, that's, then you would be looking at the undead females. Undead females. I don't know. That's a hard one for me, because if they're not dead, then they're the same thing as the angels, because it's only the members of the next level that are not dead. All humans are dead until they wake up and come alive through receiving and applying information from the next level. Now, that can be done. We can all have been doing that since, being very young, in degrees, by certain things we don't want to do, that other people think is a popular thing to do and a cool thing to do, and we just don't want to do it. We don't want to get involved with, certain substances, and if we do, we stay away from them if we've overcome it, even though we might have had a habit for a while or whatever. Those are the kind of things that are the things we can get help with through our dreams. And but that will make us into students, and angels and students is used the same way. Because when I say student, I'm talking about an active student, somebody that's actively being of service to the next level by standing for tea and dough, however often or however, I'm not saying what, there was no measurement given in that of how much and to what degree, and to who, and whether it's 10 people or 1,000 people or one person, or so we don't need to make any of those judgments in that. But I don't know. I might have got kind of went around by Jericho there, but I see what you're saying, and I don't know why I don't know why they would have come up backwards as being females, unless well, see, the thing is, I imagine that you're like being a psychic when you do that, and you could be picking up on interpretations of sounds, and sounds. Well, Doe said that a discarnate was an echo. Now, an echo is a sound wave, right? Bouncing off of something. So what this echo that is a spirit or discarnate is a sound wave bouncing off the electromagnetic field of the earth in relationship to the flesh that it was born from. But if it's outside the flesh, then it's just bouncing off the electromagnetic field of the earth. It's running against it. That's the way you talk about it in computer terms. Software runs against the operating system. I guess up against it, like, pressed up against it, close, embedded on it. And that's what discarnates are doing with us when they use us. And that can sometimes help us, and sometimes that can hinder us. All right, well, that's all I'm going to say about that. But I'd like to, if you're in touch with him again and you want to tell him what Tiando's intention, and thoughts were, I can't prove to you that they said that because I don't know where that is in the tapes, or if it was even in a tape where they said that the next level works with people in dreams. Yeah, I don't know. All right, folks. But I know I have more than a memory of that. I mean, they told us to, they said when we went to bed, another thing we were supposed to say to our vehicles, to program our vehicles, was to stay with the vehicle instead of like astral traveling. They didn't call it astral traveling, but that's what it seems like they were talking about it, or in other words, going someplace. I used to do that when I was young, especially. I used to think about it as playing basketball, how I would be like on the basketball court, and like dribbling, like going up for a layup or something, and I would leave the ground and I would start flying towards the basket, and then I would do what I was going to do. In the dream, I didn't even think in terms of putting the ball in the basket. I just thought that I saw myself then loop up and around and then come down close to the ground, flying. And they say that people's flying dreams are evidence of them astral traveling. And they can develop it. And I can understand how you can develop it. You can kind of like build on it. But Tiando didn't want us to do that because they want us to stay with our vehicles and only have the thoughts and behaviors and pleasures, if you want to look at it as a pleasure, through their teachings. What they gave us as thoughts and pleasures. And yes, they wanted everything from us. But but we had to give it to them. They didn't take it from us. Because they didn't test us in any way. They didn't have any ways of, measuring. Like, they didn't have like a chart that said how many times I thought about this problem or that problem, or how many times I had this slippage or that slippage. And they didn't give us something to say over and over again, out loud or whatever. We didn't do any out loud prayer. Prayer was like we didn't even talk in terms of prayer, because T&O were with us. So if we wanted to talk to them, we would write a note to them. Or if it was an emergency of some sort, find out if we could get a phone number if they didn't live in the same craft. But that would have been totally rare that we would do anything like that. Truthing of the world, so that's a cool analogy about discarnate. Thank you. You're welcome. Good. I'm glad it was okay, because I am getting so tired that I don't know. It's hard for me to sometimes complete thoughts. I mean, it's always hard for me sometimes for that to happen. Well, usually when I'm tired, it's harder. All right, so I didn't read the other comment you said there, Truth in the World, are going to visit other Christians at night the same way. Oh, no, I did read that one. Darn. Gee, now I'm starting to forget about what I was talking about for all this time. All right. It's been a pleasure. And I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk again and get to see you all and hear from your minds. I didn't go through Apophis as much as I wanted to. But it might be the next level spacecraft or the Armada that Atlas might have been depicting as well when it broke up into a whole bunch of different parts. Doe and his Armada. Okay, looking up. That was the saying that T&O had. Good night. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay.